Reality is not random. It does not unfold by chance, by fortune, or by the whims of circumstance. What appears chaotic is simply structure operating beyond your current perception. The alchemist understood this, not as theory, but as observable law. He was not attempting to turn lead into gold through chemistry alone. He was mapping the structural process by which potential becomes form. He was studying the blueprint. This blueprint exists whether you acknowledge it or not. It governs the condensation of thought into matter, the transformation of inner state into outer condition, the movement from invisible to visible. And it follows a precise sequence encoded in ancient symbols: 2 circles, a triangle, and a square. These were not decorations. They were diagrams of how reality organizes itself from source to manifestation. The outer circle represents the all, infinite consciousness, totality, the field of pure undifferentiated potential. This is existence before form, awareness before limitation, the boundless container within which all things arise. You cannot grasp it, you can't conceptualize it fully, but you exist within it. Everything does. Within this outer circle sits a smaller circle, unity, the point of focused awareness. This is where polarity begins, not as conflict, but as differentiation. Within this inner circle, undivided consciousness splits into 2 fundamental forces: the active and the receptive, the solar and the lunar, the directive will and the formative field. This is not good versus evil, this is structure. One principle projects, the other receives. One illuminates, the other reflects. One chooses, the other organizes. Together, they are the engine of creation. This polarity within the inner circle is not something you create. It is inherent to manifestation itself. Consciousness cannot express without differentiating. To move from potential into form requires division of labor. The active principle focuses attention and plants intention. The receptive principle absorbs that focus and magnifies it into pattern, emotion, habit. These are the 2 forces the alchemist called sulfur and mercury, spirit and soul, fire and water, volatile and fixed. And when these forces interact in proper proportion, they produce salt, the 3rd principle, stabilization, the grounding of energy into structure. This brings us to the triangle. The 3 points represent sulfur, mercury, and salt, soul, spirit, and body. The triangle is not polarity itself. It is what emerges when polarity is held in balance. It is the stable interaction of the active and receptive forces, creating a 3rd principle that anchors them into coherent form. The triangle is inner architecture. It is belief made stable. It is identity solidified. It is the psychic structure that determines how you perceive, how you feel, how you act. Most people try to change their reality by manipulating the square, the outer, material world. The square represents the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. It is matter, circumstance, the visible plane of lived experience. But the square is not the cause. It is the effect. It is the final precipitation of what is already stabilized within the triangle. To change the square without refining the triangle is futile. The pattern will reassert itself. The instability will return. The alchemist knew this. He did not chase outcomes. He refined structure. He understood that matter cannot be reshaped without first adjusting the proportion of forces within the inner circle. If the active principle dominates without receptive depth, the triangle becomes distorted. You get rigid will, burnout, control without integration. If the receptive principle dominates without active direction, the triangle collapses into passivity. You get drift, emotional looping, absorption without initiative. In either case, the square reflects the imbalance. Your external life mirrors your internal distortion. The secret is proportion. The active and receptive forces must be balanced within the inner circle. When sulfur and mercury interact in harmony, salt forms naturally. When the conscious will aligns with the subconscious field, the triangle stabilizes, and when the triangle is stable, the square organizes itself accordingly. What was inner becomes outer. What was invisible becomes visible. This is not magic, this is law. Consider how this operates within you. The outer circle is the infinite field of awareness you exist within, consciousness itself, the ground of being. The inner circle is your focused attention, your point of coherent awareness. Within this focus, polarity arises. Your conscious mind directs. Your subconscious mind receives and magnifies. If you consciously focus on limitation, your subconscious organizes around limitation. If you consciously dwell on fear, your subconscious magnifies fear into emotion, perception, habit. It does not judge. It simply reflects and amplifies what you impress upon it. But when you focus with clarity, when you direct your attention toward truth rather than distortion, the receptive field aligns. Sulfur and mercury come into proportion. The triangle stabilizes. Your beliefs, your identity, your inner structure begins to cohere around what you are consciously choosing rather than what you are unconsciously repeating. And as this structure stabilizes, it precipitates into the square. Your circumstances shift. Your external reality reorganizes, not because you forced it, but because you refined the inner proportion that produces it. This is why the alchemical work was called the great work. It was not great because it was difficult. It was great because it addressed the foundation. The alchemist did not ask, "How can I change my external conditions?" He asked, "What is the inner proportion that produces these conditions?" And he adjusted that proportion with precision. The process requires returning to the inner circle, to unity, to coherent focus, to the still point before fragmentation. Here, you recalibrate. You allow the active and receptive forces to come back into balance. You stop the drift of unconscious attention and become deliberate about what you project inwardly. This is not effort. This is refinement. It is subtle adjustment rather than forceful push. As the inner circle stabilizes, the triangle reflects that stability. The three principles, soul, spirit, body, come into alignment. Your inner world becomes coherent, and coherence within inevitably expresses as order without. The square does not resist this. It simply reflects it. Matter is not separate from mind. It is mind made dense, slowed down, crystallized into form. Mastery, then, is not the accumulation of techniques. It is the recognition of structure. It is learning to work with the blueprint rather than against it. It is understanding that you cannot bypass the triangle to reshape the square. You must descend into the inner circle. Refine the proportion of forces there. Allow that refinement to stabilize within the triangle, and trust that the square will reorganize accordingly. The alchemist offers no shortcuts, no comfort, no promises of ease. He offers only this: reality follows architecture. Refine the structure, and reality must follow. You are not separate from this process. You are within it. The blueprint operates through you whether you recognize it or not. The only question is whether you will work with it consciously or remain unconscious of the forces shaping your reality. This is the hidden blueprint. Not mystical, not symbolic, structural. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it.